Let's just check if we are live. Just a quick check. Okay, it looks like we are live. Great. So, hi everyone, this is Aniket D'Souza, and welcome to another Tuesday talk session. In this session, we'll be talking about the how to build a digital marketing plan. And this is a question that a lot of people, a lot of managers, a lot of marketers kind of are struggling with, considering that digital marketing is chaotic. There are a lot of things out there that you can actually choose, and since it is a lot to basically try on, it becomes difficult to actually narrow down on the things that you should actually do. There was a talk that I had done previously, and it was also about why I don't personally use social media marketing for to kind of promote the digital agency, which is my own agency. I don't really use social media marketing, and if you haven't checked that out, you should, because you're going to know the difference between how important it is to pick a channel that's connected or resonates with your audience or resonates with your target audience. So that's something that I've covered in that earlier session. So let's get on to how do you build a digital marketing plan for your own brand in this particular video. All right, so I'm just going to shift. I've made a couple of slides so I can actually explain that side by side. So let me just shift to that. Okay, all right, so let's get started. So the first thing that I generally ask the client is usually what is his objective and what's the budget. And at this point of time, a lot of people say, I don't really know what the budget is and how much do I really invest. And at that point, I just say that, okay, if you really do not know how much you want to invest, then how much you think you can actually spend, at least in the first month, it becomes extremely difficult for me to tell you what to actually pitch or what to actually give you as a solution. And it also depends on what the objective is. So it's not necessary that everything works or all the platforms work for a particular business. And the whole point of what works is defined by what your objective is. And at times your objective can be you want to just build visibility, or you just want to make sure that people come and buy your brand, or you want to kind of educate people with about your business. So there are different parts of a branding exercise and different parts of objectives that are over here. And at this point of time, what actually matters is two things. One, what is your objective and what is your budget, and that's generally a starting point. So for those people who generally do not know what their budget is, I just tell them, okay, give me three different figures. Maybe you can give me like a 30K, 50K, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh, and I will basically tell you what is possible. And at that point of time, I just give a commercial statement. I don't really do any kind of detailing, because uh, there are two things that I ask. I actually ask for what is your objective, and second, I also basically look at the commercials. I'm not really talking about what you're going to do in those, but this is going to be more about, okay, how much do you actually require to spend at any given point of time. It's fairly easier to actually put a figure when you are working on a particular bracket, so that I can. So generally, what happens is, for someone who is actually doing the digital marketing planning, it becomes easier for them to figure out what platforms can be used. And at times there are situations where most of the marketers say that, okay, you know what, if what you do actually drives more business, and it actually leads to more business, then obviously the budget is limitless. Now here's the problem. The problem is we don't know how much you have to spend, right? Unlike the traditional media, digital marketing, you can set a budget or you can pause it. You can reactivate it. You can pause it. You can do a lot of things. It's unlike offline or traditional marketing. When you look at traditional marketing, you're going to say, okay, hey, you know what? Let's put an ad on a television, and this is what's going to cost you. But in digital, even if I tell you saying that, okay, it's going to cost you, let's say, $1,000, I can stop the ad anytime I want. I can stop it at $50 also. I can stop it at $500 also if it's not working. So generally, when we start off with digital, I look at it as a progressive budget. So you tend to look at it saying that, okay, let's put a X budget, and then based on that budget, give me a plan. And that's an easier way to go with, because otherwise it's like this Alice in the Wonderland where Alice asks the cat saying, which direction do I take? And Alice says, and the cat asks Alice saying that, you know, where do you want to go? And Alice says, saying that she doesn't really know where to go. So then the cat says, if you don't know where to go, then it doesn't matter which road you take, right? Which place you go. So at the end of it, that's that. These are the core elements. You need to know what your objective is, and you need to know what is that kind of fuel or the energy or the budget that you have to actually go through with that objective. So starting with that, I go about the first thing that I generally do when I look at building a digital plan is create an understanding for myself about the kind of current assets that we have as part of digital marketing. So let's say you would have a Facebook page. What's the kind of situation that your page is in right now? Are there any kind of weaknesses on your page? Is there something that I can improve or I can suggest over the top just when looking at the page? So these are, I'm not going to get into the small details over here, but generally what I do is I look at how big your follower base is, how active are you, how often do you post, how many engagements do you get? Do you really do a boost post or you don't? And what kind of comments do you get? What kind of reviews do you get on the platform? Which platforms are you actually existing on? Are you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, all these platforms? Do you have a website? How active is your website? What kind of things are you doing on your website? Are you an e-commerce business? All of that. And I also use a couple of tools, a couple of web tools that are out there to give me an indication, saying that, hey, you know what, these are the kind of problems that this particular person or this particular brand has, and that's what I generally do to understand current assets of a brand. And then once we're done with the current assets, then we move into the competitors' digital assets. So I look at, let's say, compare 2 to 3 competitors, and I saying that, okay, if these are your competitors, what are they doing that you're not doing? And then I basically get into the deep research understanding of what kind of posts are they doing. Are they what kind of content buckets are they posting on? What kind of communication do they have? What is their tagline? What's their feel factor when you just go up on the page? What kind of interesting engagement activities do they do? Do they do a contest every month? Do they do any kind of giveaways, freebies? Do they have a very exciting user base that engages with them? Do they do influencer marketing campaigns, right? So these are the kind of questions that I generally ask and I look about. And at sometimes I also go through their website. So let's say if I'm supposed to be reviewing the website when I look at an overall digital marketing plan, then I also go to the website and I have a look at, okay, what are the competitors doing that you're not doing? So for example, I did end up going to one of these competitors, and when I was doing an analysis, and I found out that when people add a product to cart, they kind of give freebies as well, so that the conversion increases when somebody adds a product to cart. So what they do is, okay, you added a X product to cart, and then you look on top, they say that, okay, you can also if you buy this right now, you're going to get these as samples from other brands. And they'll be like, okay, I think I should really buy it right now, because this is an offer that I'm not going to get at all, right? And that's how they basically tempt users to buy. So that's an interesting insight, which is probably not done on your site or on your website, right? So these are some of the insights that you get when you're doing an elaborate competitor analysis. And mind you, a lot of people, when they do competitor analysis, they only look at apples to apples. And I generally go a step beyond that, because apples to apples, I can just create a video and have any executive do it, right? What I basically am interested in is, what is the competitor doing that you're not doing, right? The apples to apples is something that anyone can do, and I can do it like instantly. Give me around 15 minutes and I'll give you apples to apples comparison. But let's say if it is about finding out what is the competitor doing that you're not doing, that's going to take time. Now that's going to take like around 2 hours, 3 hours of research trying to actually figure out what the competitor is doing which you're not doing. And that's the key towards being able to understand and getting exposure to the variety of digital marketing tactics that are out there. All right, so that's what it is. And once I do that, now that I've understood the brand, and I've understood what the competitor does, I kind of look at redefining the brief. So if the brief says saying that, okay, let's say we've got to build awareness, and be like, okay, if I've got to build awareness, then this is what all I've got to do as part of building awareness. So it's going to be something like build awareness with X, Y, Z, or A, B, C. And that's how I basically define the brief, right? I redefine the brief so that it kind of adds more value to the client or to any business, rather than just saying, okay, just create awareness, right? So now when I basically am redefining the brief, I'm actually telling them, okay, this is what you need to do. And the next thing is that I also saying, okay, define the objectives. So when I'm looking at define the objectives, what I generally do is I say, okay, if when I say quantified, what I mean by quantified is that I just don't saying that, okay, reach a lot of people, right? I put a number to it. So I say we're going to target 5 million impressions by the end of, or 5 million impressions per month by the end of the next 6 months. Okay, and that's an objective. Second objective, we're going to reach 1 lakh fans within 9 months. I'm being very specific. I'm telling people, saying that I'm telling my client or the business saying that this is what your targets are going to be, this is what your objectives are going to be. What we need is we need to build a community. What we need is we need to have consistent messaging. We need to make sure that you're constantly in touch with people, and you need to reach 5 million people every month. And what are the other things, right? So XYZ, that's what is very important, and that's what we kind of focus on. So the next part, then once I'm done with, okay, once I've basically said we need to reach 5 million people, we need to have an X amount of community on our page by the end of so and so month, the person on the other end, or the brand already knows, or the client already knows that this is what I will get. And now that I know what I will get, let's get into the details of what you're going to do to actually get there, right? And how are you going to start off? Now, to start off, I'm going to basically define what my target audience is. And I'm not going to just look at the overview of what my target audience is. So generally what people tend to put is very similar to, let's say, they look at saying A plus audience, and you look at saying, this is the kind of audience that you have, so this is the personality and all of that. What we do in digital is, to add value of digital, is that we use all of these behavioral factors, and we create an audience plan with numbers, showing people, saying that, okay, if this is your target audience, then based on this target audience, how big is your number on Facebook, how big is your number on Instagram, how many male, how many female, how big is your number on another platform. So I'll give you an example. Right, so this was something that I was working for a brand, or lingerie brand, and they were telling me that, the brand's audience is someone who is you can say about 18 plus, and it was someone who is married. Sorry, it's someone with a child. Uh, and when I actually put someone with a child, and I put 18 plus, I used to get an X number. And then when I removed the 18 plus and I kind of made it to, let's say, above 13, I used to get another, probably like around 20-30,000 people added to it. Which means, what does that mean? It simply says that, Facebook has identified more people who have not mentioned that they are married or they are not married, and you can go get more people who are connected, who have been categorized under having children. So that's an insight that you will never get if you were directly saying, okay, this is who your target audience is. Now here, when we basically do defining the target audience, you define it with real numbers, which you can get from an ad dashboard on Facebook or Instagram or any of these platforms. All these platforms have got access to ad dashboards. You've got access to ad dashboards. So let's just not stop at defining this is your audience. Go a step beyond. When you're looking at digital marketing, you can go a step beyond and saying, okay, this is the size of your audience as well. You might not be able to reach it because you're not going to put a budget that will be quantifiable to actually reach that audience at 100%, but you can definitely know how big is your audience on each of these platforms in your target markets. So you can put your geographical restrictions, you can put your interest restrictions, you can put behavioral, you can put a lot of these combinations and figure out who your audience is. You can also target your competitors if it kind of shows in the interest level, and you will be able to do that. So that's how you define target audience, and you can basically and that's generally how I do it. I actually do it with the numbers rather than not doing with the numbers. So let's go to the next part. The next part is I try to find out or identify the platforms that resonates with my objective and my target audience. And then I wonder, saying, hey, you know what, how do I basically codify it? So I've what I did over a period of time is I kind of worked out on a codifying process to try to figure out where all of these elements fit in, right? So, and this is what I actually came up with. I built up this particular. So what you see on the left side is actually a marketing funnel. So it's always been there, but what you see on the right side is all the services and how they scatter across this consumer funnel. So generally, what happens is if someone is actually looking at awareness, then I know these are the things that you can do. If someone is looking at education, then you can actually look at the familiarity segment. If you're looking at consideration, which is just before buying, you're doing your final research, and that's where your YouTube reviews come in, right? It's like you are watching a lot of videos trying to actually understand whether that is the right product for you. And search engine optimization comes in, social media support comes in, ORM comes in, and all of these services come in. And then let's say you're going for a purchases, then just before you purchase, you're still looking at reviews. So that's where your Amazon, Flipkart reviews or your marketplace reviews come in, and that's as part of reviews, and the rest of the elements come in and fall in place also. So this is basically one of the guidelines that, or a guideline framework that I generally use. And what I do is I kind of look at this and then go about building an execution plan, because it kind of cuts down on the time of trying to think, saying what is it that I actually require, what is it that you need. So that's something that to look at. I mean, that's something interesting, and I hope you find this interesting as well. And the next part after this is generally to detail out what I'm going to actually do within after selecting each of these platforms, right? So then I kind of go one slide at a time, saying that okay, and personalize it. I'm not going to give any kind of gyan on how these platforms work, but it's more about how these platforms will work for you and how are we going to actually personalize it for you. So that's basically how it actually goes about. And then that's once we're done with that, which is the consistency plan, which basically means that this is a plan that's been put in place for doing it on a regular basis or keeping the activity going on a regular basis. And then we have the campaign plan. So these are like spikes, these are like stunts, these are like events, right? And whenever you want to kind of reach out to a massive audience, and then you don't have that budget to run through all the time, so you have a consistency budget and you have these massive events that you want to add on. Now you can do it as part of a contest, which is a low scale, low expense activity versus a large event like a huge advertising campaign that you can do parallelly as well. So these are two different approaches. One is a consistency based, and then you have the campaign based. Campaign based has very interesting ideas, so you can actually explore and suggest those. And then to the coming on next is defining targets based on the tentative budgets. So once we're done with that, then since we have done with how to do it, what we are going to do it, and now we basically come over to the part where you're going to say that okay, this is your audience, this is your total audience that you can reach, this is your core audience, right? Now based on the budgets that you've defined, So let's say I will give a plan A based on this. This is the kind of reach that you can actually get, or this is the kind of visibility you can get, or these are the kind of projected conversions you can get. At the end of it, no one knows whether you're going to get it or no in detail. That's because Facebook gives you approximates, it gives you average based on industry, based on the keywords that you've selected, and 1,000 other points or events that are being selected. At the end of it, it is also your product that works. If your product is very new, then you have to kind of test it and trial run it. And if your brand is new, you've got to test it and trial run it. So without that, it becomes unless you have past data, it becomes extremely difficult for you to actually figure out whether something works or it does not work. And then the last part of it is obviously put a timeline. And when I look at putting a timeline, so yeah, so the last part of it is putting a timeline. Now, once we're done with showing, saying what's the kind of target, what's the kind of numbers you can achieve, then it's about how soon you can achieve it, what you're going to do in the first month, what you're going to do in the second month, what you're going to do in the third month, and what you're going to do in the fourth month. So it kind of gives a broad structure saying, okay, now that we're done with the plan, this is how we're going to roll out the plan, how soon we're going to start, and what's going to happen next, right? So this is generally done when when the monies are large. So let's say if you're going to pitch for a large brand, and they are not very clear on what needs to be done, but they're confident that you can actually deliver, and that's something that they really want you to invest your time in, and that's when I actually go about it. A lot of times I get people saying, hey, you know what, we just need this, we don't need anything else. It simply means that you've already done the plan yourself. You don't really require this major plan, you just need somebody to execute it. So if you need someone to execute it, then I can give you give you any kind of service instantly. So let's say if someone tells me saying, hey, you know what, I want to kind of manipulate Twitter, and I want to make sure that my brand is seen on Twitter, or I'm running a political campaign. I need something to be put up on Twitter and to make sure that it trends nationally. I can get you that instantly, right? So, and I can get you instantly because we're connected to influencers in the space of Twitter, and we can manipulate trends. And I can tell you upfront that this is any which ways a new business, considering Twitter charges a lot of money for doing ads, and it's economical at this current phase. It's economical to actually do trends with more than 200 people, because you're going to spend less. That's there. But the other part is that it's a combination of influencers, plus it's a combination of a national trend. So you get two, or you hit two birds at one go, right? So, and that's what makes it interesting. So uh, at that rate, you can manipulate Twitter trends. I've seen a lot of manipulations that have been done before. You can actually have a look at it. I've already also done a video on how marketers manipulate Twitter to actually get the trends done. So I've shown it to you with a live example, although that live example had people who were bots, but and it was for a large brand in India. But when we generally do it, we tend to take influencers as well. um, it's a matter of choice, right? It's a personal choice. So you can go really cheap, even when it comes to Twitter trends, by taking bots on board, or taking fake accounts on board. But you can actually do it with influencers and verified accounts as well, and that's something that we basically choose because we genuinely want the brand to actually have that kind of wide awareness. So having around 230 people tweeting about 2000 plus times, having a reach, each person having a reach of around 7,000 plus people. So that's the kind of massive network that we are currently connected to, and this is one of the it's just one of the approaches. So people come and say, okay, I want just a Twitter trend to be done nationally, and I'm like, okay, you can do it. You want just the Wikipedia page? Yes, you can do it. So these are like, they're not actually full-fledged digital marketing plans, but they're more like, okay, I just want fillers, and I want gaps, and I want campaigns, and that's when we basically do that kind of an approach. But generally, if you're going to look at an overall plan, and at times what happens is every 6 months you ideally have to kind of do a review of the plan that's been put in place and how it's working, and that's generally how you think and go about it. All right, so I think I've spoken for quite some time. Um, and if you have any questions, just share it on the timeline. Let me just and I will get back to you when I actually um, when I will get back to you once we're done with this particular video. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. And if you have further questions on how to actually go detailed on and what are the kind of tools I use or anything of that sort, I will be doing videos on those fronts, or I might have done already some of these videos that you might want to check on my YouTube channel, and you will get more ideas from there. Yeah. All right. Thank you, and see you next week.